Francis Bacon was remorselessly drawn to the extremes of existence. In his life, he was attracted to drinking, gambling and dangerous sex. As an artist, he started out as a marginal outsider, only appreciated by the avant-garde. Today, he's considered one of the greatest artists of the last century. A new exhibition at the Sainsbury Centre for Visual Arts here in Norwich is devoted to looking at just how Francis Bacon was influenced by the art that came before him. Bacon and the Masters gathers 30 works from Bacon himself alongside art from many of the people who he was influenced by. And most of this work has never been displayed in Britain before. There's around 100 works in this exhibition, from the likes of Cézanne, Matisse, Titian, Van Gogh and Michelangelo. That's a lot to take in, so this is how Francis Bacon was inspired by 5 of these great masters. Bacon wasn't religious. He thought we came from nothing and we return to nothing. But he was fascinated by religious imagery and religious figures. This painting of Pope Innocent X is actually inspired by a painting by Velázquez. Bacon thought that Velázquez had a unique ability to capture the soul of the sitter, and he painted dozens of versions of this painting. The lesson Bacon learnt from Velázquez was that art was about more than faithful illustration. You had to go deeper. So in his paintings, Bacon took inspiration from paintings of popes and the crucifixion, but he stripped them down so they became images of stark, almost bestial cruelty. Bacon often painted his own reflection from the mirror, an experience he called observing the work of death. His self-portraits were inspired by the work of Rembrandt. Rembrandt was a master of light and shadow, but even more than technique, Bacon was inspired by how Rembrandt represented the same sitter and himself over time, the power of art to depict the passing of time. Bacon used to say that between birth and death is the violence of life. In his life, Bacon lived through the brutality of the Second World War, and in his paintings, the figures are often distorted, deformed, twisted. His work walks along the tightrope between abstract and figurative painting, and ahead of him always was Picasso. Picasso showed how it was only by breaking the rules of representation that an artist could tell a deeper truth. From Picasso, Bacon learnt about distortion and fragmentation, about how to make art that was more real than the real thing.
Bacon's paintings were radical and powerful when people first encountered them in the mid-20th century. And I think one of the pleasures of this exhibition is really the way in which it testifies to his skill as a painter and his command of his craft. But also one of the real thrills is to see how unashamed and unabashed he was about his use of his sources, and the extraordinary way in which he manipulated and distorted these influences into images of real physical and psychological extreme. And I think they're as powerful now as they were 50, 60, 70 years ago.
The main sources of artistic images for Bacon was the work of Michelangelo. He was fascinated by how Michelangelo represented the strength of the human body, especially the male body. And you can see just how much he borrows from Michelangelo by comparing the crouching boy with 2 figures in a room. Bacon was gay, and in 50s Britain, homosexuality was both illegal and often dangerous. That may be why the human figures in his work are so often alone, screaming, crouching, weighed down by existential despair. A powerful source of inspiration here was Van Gogh. Bacon based this painting on a photograph he saw of a Van Gogh work that had been destroyed by wartime bombing. The depth of Van Gogh isn't just in the theme and the palette, but even in the style of brushwork that Bacon used, which so echoes Van Gogh. I could go on and talk about Matisse, Cézanne, Titian and so on, or I could just say, why not see the exhibition for yourself? Bacon and the Masters is on at the Sainsbury Centre for Visual Arts until July the 26th.